Huyu ameruka amesema hana power. Right. So by yesterday, this is what we had without the title. So I went ahead and added the title here to be my best to do up, just under main as the first child. Then I went ahead and changed the gradient like that. And I actually created it to be a variable so that I can easily change it at once with all way it occurs. So using a variable, I could be able to change it kama huku, background var gradient, and any place that is used. For example, here it has been used as the active class or the background color. So I went ahead and did that. So let me refresh the page. Yes, yeah, that's the background color. And the way I remove nilipata hii gradient, there are a few websites that can help. For example, if you go cssgradient.io, this one, you'll be able to see, it will help you get some gradients. For this case, I just copied what has been given here as an example, and I decided to use that for the project background and the active class. So I copied this one and replaced it here. So that's what I took for my, I decided to use a radial gradient as compared rather than using a linear gradient, and it's looking good. So yeah, so to continue where we left yesterday, we needed to add a few more things to this input here and add another input that can be able to create lists. So we are going to have an introduction to JavaScript today. So those who have been asking when JavaScript can be introduced, I'm just going to do an introduction with this project. Then as we continue doing HTML, CSS, Cosmos will be handling now the proper introduction to JavaScript. So I'm just going to make this one work as just the week's project, but from next week, Cosmos will be taking you through the JavaScript course itself as fully, starting from the start. I'll introduce it, give him a hand to continue. So let's add a few things here. For example, this to do, we want to have a check, something like a tick. If I click it, it is marked as complete. If and an X, if I click on the X, it's cancelled or deleted from the storage. So let's get into it. Going to our JavaScript file, our HTML file here. So we had a to-do item here and a p tag here. I'm going to add a few more parameters or a few more elements. So I'm going to do a div. Div can't help here. Let me just do a div here. Div here, and I'm going to add a few this span. No, let me use a button for its work. Done. Paste below and say delete. So I'm going to add a class here, class btn, and btn done. We have a class of btn and btn delete. If I do that, scroll down, find it here, .btn. I'm going to remove the border, setting the border none, and I'm also going to remove any outline that might be there. Then I'm going to set a font size. It should be just a small button, so 12 pixels, and some padding which is not really large, but for just like 6 pixels top and bottom, then about 10 px left and right. And for our btn dash done, we are just going to set a background color of something green. So I'm going to use another color method called a RGBA. So we have red, green, and blue. So 0 for red, green to be full, and for the blue one, 0. And for the alpha level, I'm going to take a 0.5. We'll see how it looks like, then get back to edit it. So btn dash delete. Btn delete to look similar, but now with the red. If you look, the way I'm setting RGBA is red, green, blue, 0 to 550. That's for the red, green, and blue. And the 0.5 is for the alpha level. For this case, I don't want any red. I only want, oh no, I don't want any green. I only want the red. So I'm setting it to the maximum number. That is 255. I save the file, reload the page. Yes. Oh, so those are my two buttons. Let me like style them zionekane better off. I can go to the buttons, change the color actually. I think I shall change it from this point. Color say white. I refresh the page, that's what it will look like. So I need to move these buttons to the end here. I don't want them to be below the to do itself. So how can I achieve that? Remember we had this wrapper class here called to do item. So we are going to set or edit the to do item class. So I'm going to find my to do item. Here it is, and styling it or giving it more properties. I'm going to add a display here of flex and a flex of 1. Then we have a few things now down starting here. I'm going to style the let me style them on top here to do item on hover, to do input. Before we start the to do input itself, so let's do the to do dash item and the p. So we have targeted the p, just this p, and we're going to set its flex width or setting its width to have something like 3. And I'm going to set the div itself to do item div to have a width or a smaller width than the p tag. Refresh the page, that's how it will look like. If I may add a background color here to see the way they have taken widths, I'm going to set this one to green. Refresh the page. Now you can see for this part, it has taken a width up to this point and given space to this ones. So to check for the div, yes, yes, yes. Okay, a moment there. Mm, yes. Oh, uh, oh, the radio gradient. Oh, yeah. So if you use, yeah, there are actually 3. We have some sort of red, 3 or 2. So I think let's just confirm how many colors are here. So we have RGBA. Actually, there are 2 colors only, except the other one is some sort of, is it pink or red or what is it? Here, that's the value. And the other one, yeah, na ingine ni ya blue. Yeah, blue and some sort of pink. Is that pink? Yeah, I think so. So there are just 2 colors for these radio gradients to make it look nice. Okay, thank you, Robin, for pointing that out. Remember, your colors have to like. Zing, thanks. Zingiane tu kidogo. Then I'm going to set a display of flex here. Yes, a question. Somebody else. Yes. Okay, good question. So I think I did answer that one yesterday. As you said, your network was slow. It's good you write everything down that you are going to do. Yes. Yes. Hello, go ahead, kindly. Yes. Yes. So Robin has pointed something out about the question from Jeremy. You have to have something like your idea, you have a sketch of what you are building, a prototype, a design, then an application. A prototype is like improved wireframes, I can say, of what you are building. Like ni design yako but haina hizo colors, haina kitu yoyote. It might be something like something down. So, but it's better at least to have a sketch than a design before you do your application. This is part of what's called just somebody has raised a hand or done something of sort. Oh, Rovin has shared a file, link here to something, to Figma actually. So Figma is one of the platforms where you can use to do your designs. For example, the portfolio I had sent earlier, I just downloaded one here at Figma and I shared and said that's what we are going to build, but we couldn't go ahead with it. So you could come onto Figma, design something like this one is a page which has been designed. Then you translate this design into a project. Now you have everything you are building. You just translate it down to something you can share now in a URL or in a domain. So let's continue. So I have centered my buttons in their own parent div. This is this div here. text. Yes. Yeah. So there are these steps, but at least mimi hapa vile nawafunza, I like skipped everything because yes, I didn't prepare fully for the knee, but hisi ati ni kitu complex, so it's good to have your idea down na ujue ni nini unafanya exactly, otherwise you'll be adding features while deleting others. So yeah, we have our buttons here. So I said I added some display flex here. Na hii button, na hii div ni ndogo kushinda hii p tag. The p tag has taken like much of the space than the div. Now I am going to add some spacing. As you can see, our buttons here, they are like together or some sort of squeezed. Somehow they are still good, but not so good. So I'm just going to add a class here to say item action, item actions. I've added a class here because you have remembered I need to use this one in JavaScript to add some few more things there. So item actions. So here we go down to where we were. This to do item div. Instead of a div, I'm going to just replace it with the item actions. And I'm going to add some gap here of 2 pixels, just a small gap between the two buttons. There we go. And I'm going to delete the background color on the p tag. After that, I'm going to do yeah. So we have these item actions. By default, I'm going to hide them. So that is like display none. I had set here display flex, so there's no need of me adding a display none at the in the bottom here. So I'm just going to replace this one to display none. I'm hiding them actually. I don't want them to be appearing. I only want them to appear when I'm hovering over this to do item. So that's what I'm going to do next. The dot to do item in hover. I want to see the dot item actions. So I'm going to set now the display that I want of inline flex. This one. If I refresh the page, come here, I can be able to see the action buttons when I'm hovering on the item itself. But what you notice the rest don't have because they don't contain the same data as the first element or the first to do item here. So let's add a few more properties to the buttons or to the actions. So I'm going to find where they are. I call them a btn. I'm going to add a cursor here of pointer. So if I hover over each button here, you can see like some sort of hiyo cursor ya kidole. That's the one which is called a pointer cursor. The next I'm going to add a similar input hapa chini ya kuongeza lists. So let me just copy this, move it here. We're good to go. So I'm going to my to do input, find the to do input there, copy it, nienda juu, find the to do list. Where is it? Here is the list. Just paste it somewhere here, just hapo. Nitaacha tu under to do input, there's no harm. Except this input is going to have a different ID. So this one is going to call the list input, and this one is going to have a different ID too. ID is to do. Let me just call it input. So let's see what we have. Refresh the page, add enter task here. I don't want to call that task here. I need to change this one to enter list name here. List name here. There we go. and we have add. I call this one add list. Here we go. Now we can say we can add lists here and they can be appended here. But this one is going to flow like top down. It's not fixed like this other one. So let me show you how to do the fixing. Maybe it will help uh, if you never caught how we did the fixing. Hii input iko hapa chini na iko fixed. So let's do it on this other side. So for that other side, I'm going to add a class here. I'm going to call this one to do, nope. These are the lists folder. Then this h2, we have a call here, call for. I think it's pretty good. So let's quickly design it. So I'm just going to find where the call for is. Here we have our call for. I'm going to start writing the styles here by adding a height of 100%. I want this column to take the same height as the card or the row, the given height. By default, I'd set the height of the card to 100, I think 100%. Also, it's taking the height from the parent, that's main. So that's where it's taking its height from. The card height is 100%. So the call for also will have a height equal to this height here, or the height given by the card itself. This one 100%. So height 100%. I'm going to set another dot call for h. Was it h1 or h2? H2. I'm going to set some fixed height on it. I'm going to set a height of 60 pixels. Save the page. Now this list title has a height equal to this one, the YouTube list here. The next I have this h2. I'm going to set a background of var the gradient that we had. So if I save it, that's what it will look like. It has nothing. So let's quickly add a few properties. I'm going to add a padding of 10 pixels, some border radius of 10 pixels too. So far that's what it's looking. Then let me just adjust the padding top and the bottom to 10 pixels, left and right to 20 pixels. 20 pixels is larger than this. No, I won't take my time there. Color white. You could just take your time to make sure this one is matched. That's why when you are setting up your project, you need to know the exact spacing you are going to use when doing it. Otherwise, you might be having this larger, this smaller, which is not a good idea. I've changed the color to that white, and I'm also going to set the display here to flex. Then just for content, I'm going to just use align items center to make sure the list has moved down and it's at the center there. But you might notice a difference. This one is like having, it's not really center, but well, let's just continue. The next thing I want to check on is this list holder. I want it to have a height equal to this much height given. A height minus this height and minus this height here. So how am I going to do that? So I'm going to take the list holder class, go under the call for where I was styling it, just do that, then say the height equals to 100%. So for this case, I'm going to calculate the height. I don't know the exact height, but I'm going to subtract 120 pixels. So the call for has not taken that given height of 120 pixels. I don't know why, or the given height, that's 100% minus 120 pixels. So let's check out why it's not taking. So the list holder, the parent of list holder is called call for, and the call for should have a height of 100%. Call for has a height of 100%. 100% minus 120 pixels is not equal to what we are seeing, meaning something is wrong. So the fastest way to test out, as I said, you debug your code, just add some backgrounds, some colors. So my height of call for is that much, where the red goes up to. But if I subtract this minus 100% minus 120 pixels, it's not picking up. So I need to find a way or find a reason as to why it's not picking up. So the first thing I want to do is just change this or add some background here too. Say green. Say how much it has taken. That's the height. It has taken like from there down that way, meaning this input is placed in the wrong place. It should be placed down on the bottom of this height. So let's go to and see where our input is. Our input is in the list holder, making it to be among the children. So I need to move it out of the list holder, that under call for, so that it can be in the right place it should be. Paste it there. Move these ones back a bit. Refresh the page. There it is. Now it has been placed where it should be, but still too like it has taken much space than this other one. So I don't know where the error is or the bug, but let me just get rid of my colors here first. I remove the green, remove the red, then I need to refresh the page. There imeflow chini sana, so I need to move it a bit zilingane na hii ingine on the other right side. How I can do that is maybe I can just start by adding or subtracting more here. I do that, it has moved juu na imesonga juu sana, meaning it is an effect of something to do with borders, padding. There we go. It has aligned with this one. So that's the part where we have done our HTML and the CSS. Any questions to that part? We are moving on to the next part. That's JavaScript. A brief introduction on the how to make our list work. Okay, I don't believe if there are any other questions. So let's continue. So the JavaScript part, how are we going to do our JavaScript? So I'm just going to scroll down here, go out of my main and do a script here. And in this script, I'm going to write a few things. So JavaScript is a scripting language as the term goes by. And what we're going to use it is actually to make this form work. Mtu akienter kitu hapa, it's added to this list. And if somebody adds something here, it's also added to this list. So that's where our JavaScript is coming in. Otherwise, the whole introduction and the full flow, leo ni kuona tu venye nafanya. You will get it as we go on. So I'm going to just do something that's you are used to or you might be seeing in some sites. For example, when you are opening Chrome and the things are not good, it just alerts you. For example, if your passwords they are compromised, it will alert you. So your passwords have been compromised. Save the file, refresh the page. So this is an alert. That's a simple alert. How to do an alert? That's JavaScript. So JavaScript is used to do such like things. Then another thing I can say is I really don't have much to say about it right now. Let me just start doing what we are supposed to do. And that is how to make these ones work together. So I'm not going to use an inline script like this. This is also called an inline script, as we have an inline style if you did your styles using this tag on top here. So that's part of inline styling. So I'm not going to do inline scripting. I'm going to do like an external scripting using, I'm going to link my JavaScript file to my main file here. So how do I link it? I just do a script and add a source here. So for the source, I'm going to say the yes dot. Let me call it the right term. I'm going to call it index.js. Then I'm going to create a file called index.js here. Save the file. It will be saved under this folder. So I also want to confirm whether my file has been linked well to my HTML. So I come to my index.html, my index.js, and I write the same function, window.alert. I am going to alert like I'm working, something of sort. Refresh the page, it says I'm working. So my JavaScript has been linked to my HTML file. So you could do window.alert or alert, it will still work. More to that coming soon. So we said we have some inputs here, this one and this one. We first want to start by adding this list here. So my starting point will be kind of doing some templating part. So I'm going to create something called a function, and this will be a list item function. It's going to take in a list item. To be secure, I'm going to just do an item here like that, and then its result will be HTML. Yes, yes, mm, mm, yes. Yeah, actually, I'll exactly use what we have been using before. So I didn't introduce data types because I want to code. You see them when you will be having the class on JavaScript. You will learn about them more. Yes, a question. Yes. Yes. Okay. So okay, okay, right. That's good. So this is the case. We started with HTML files. If you do remember, just index.html file. If I may go back here, I don't know where my if I did keep that, but I believe it is kept somewhere. No, this was the first day. The second day, no, I didn't keep anything. The third day, no, I didn't do encoding. Fourth day, we did some coding, yes. So you see, we only created the HTML file. And we said there are three things that go together always. That is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They work together. So we started with index.html, like just HTML file, doing basic HTML thing. Then we went ahead and let me confirm here. Yes, and we went ahead and introduced uh, CSS files when we were doing our, was it sign up form? Yes, I think so. We did some CSS, then we did the sign up form. So we have introduced the two CSS, now making your site look better. That's where we are so far. A site looking better. But there's nothing that happens when I type anything here. You see, it just refreshes the page and that is it. I do that, refreshes the page, but you don't see actually what I've typed in here. This my JPress here. It has not been appended or has not been listed here. So that's where JavaScript comes in. To make the input now I do here to do something. If I input something here, I need to be sure it's showing somewhere. So it should be added to the list of lists here. It should be added as an item. If I do an input here of a to do for this YouTube list, it should be added there. But it's not working. So JavaScript, how it comes in, I'm here on my file, that's HTML and CSS. I need to now include JavaScript. I said we could do a script tag. This is one of the scripts that I never talked about when we were starting because I needed them to come in on the fly when we are doing them so that you maybe get a reason as to why we are using them. So we are going to use these script tags to make JavaScript work. What we know about these script tags is that I can do something like document dot, is it a document dot write, or I can do document dot inner HTML. That's one I'm secure with, and I say have over. written. Is it overwritten or overridden? Overridden my HTML content. So if I save that and refresh the page, nothing is working. I don't think if this is the right document dot write. I think yes. So if I do that, document dot write comes here and says I have overridden my HTML content. Na mbona I replace kila kitu huku ndani. Guys, Cosmas, you are in. Yeah, yeah. So I have said document dot write, but it has just added that one here. It has not like replaced everything in this file. So imeiongeza tu, ndio hii hapa chini on the bottom left, I think, yeah, bottom left. Yes, yeah, yeah. So yeah, what's the work of document dot write? Maybe you could help. Robin, and yeah, say something about document dot write. So let me just do this, go to my HTML. So there's something that is different with the document dot write. Document dot write just like adds like new content to the file. Now I could use JavaScript to write content to the file. That's where JavaScript kicks in, writing to the file. Then if I did like document dot body dot inner HTML, save and refresh the page, still it won't write anything because I need to select the body. So I'm just going to do const body equals to document dot query selector. Now it's like what we have been doing with CSS, selecting things. I'm going to select the body, and I'm going now to change the body dot inner HTML to that. So there we go. JavaScript is totally misbehaving. I believe I'm doing a lot of things wrong. Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Things are not working. Body dot inner HTML is not a function. Why is it not a function? Yes, good. That's nope. We have not done like much that could be affecting our JavaScript, but I think so. That's why I said we need to like understand the flow of things. But I was going ahead and doing the form itself, the to dos. So a few things or a few errors I have here is uh, I've used the query selector. So for a query selector, it's like it's selecting. I need to use like select the element itself. So instead of doing the main at the DB co, db. Okay, query select equal to sawa, except is the way I used it in the wrong format. So query selector goes with this. Okay, let's see what our body contains. Just refreshing the page here. It has the main there. So we have been able to select the main tag. Nani yako na hiyo. Yeah. So we have selected our main tag, and it's saying body.inhtml is not the right thing. So main equals document that's main. I've actually like forgotten JavaScript, guys. It is gone, like gone. So insert doesn't HTML before and it's called JavaScript. Yeah, that one is like working. Yeah, now I have been able to get the right main. I'm going to find some class here. Yeah. Oh, guys, my bad. Okay. So if you do main document.query selector, I have selected this main tag here, this one. So I've selected like everything that we had. Then I set adjacent HTML. This is like the farthest I went to only recall this main.inner HTML equals to nothing here. Yeah, there we go. So that's how it works. If I do inner HTML, it will replace everything. The reason as to where also this document never worked, document.innerHTML never worked, it's because I used it as a I used it as a function instead of using it as a different thing. So it shouldn't be used that way, but rather this way. Here we go. Okay, document.body. This is funny. Yeah, there we go. So you miss something, you just see a lot of things that are not working. So I have to select the body itself, this one, in order to override its HTML. So by just doing that, I was able to override the HTML there. So that then means I needed to do a few things here before we get started uh, to show what's happening here. So I'm just going to do const input. I'm a list input document.get element by ID, and I'm going to say list. I don't recall what we called the input for this one. We called it list input. So document.get element by ID list input. I need to confirm that I have my list input, so I can just do console.log list input like that. Open the dev tools. These are the dev tools. Isifanye hivyo. I refresh the page. Yeah, I have an input here. Then I need to select another input. The second input is the to-do input. To-do input, and I just called it just input. So I can just confirm whether I have my to-do input too. Save the file, refresh the page. Yes, I have my input there. So that's what we do with selectors. Like CSS, we do dot. We could also do here dot by using query selector. Now, instead for JavaScript, you have to like write document.querySelector what you want to select. Then I'm going to select something called .list input. But since we don't have a .list input, I'm going to select something else. That's the main tag. That's .main. Then I'm going to change its colors a bit. So let me just change this name to something which is we can see all. So main.style.background equals to red. Save the file, refresh the page. So you can see the main input or the main element has a background of red behind it. We could change this one to green. I refresh the page. There we go. It's now green. That's the work of query selectors. For now, the ones that I would like us to go with is the document.query selector. Hii ya select dot main, or you could just do like hash, what is it? It was a list input. If I save that, refresh the page, now my input has changed to green because that's where my hash is, or my ID is, my identifier, my identifier. So I am going to do this one a list input. So this list input is going to have like the form to holding this information, or the information of the input that we want to select. So I'm going to use that one, get element by ID. That's the basic selection of elements from HTML using JavaScript. Then the next thing I'm going to select is the two forms. We have the first form is the list form, document.getElement by ID. That's the list form. And another form I'm going to select is the do form. Do form. That's the document.getElement by ID to do form. We don't have these IDs in the HTML, so let's quickly add them. So this form is going to have an ID of list form, while if the second input down here, or the second form, is going to have an ID of to do form. So going down, I have my two forms. I'm going to do some magic here. We don't want the page to refresh when somebody sends the form. For example, if I refresh the page, I fill in here the form. If you look on top here, you will be able to see the page refreshing. I submit, the page has refreshed. I do that, I submit, the page refreshes, and it clears my input. I want to stop that default action. So I'm going to do list form dot add event listener. As you could have said, listening to things. Is this term written well? Yes. I'm going to listen on submit event, and this shall be an event here. So under this event, I'm going to do a few things. This is called an arrow function, and while whatever I was writing here is not an arrow function. These are the two ways of defining functions. So you could write your function like list item, or you could do a function like const list item equals to a function. So that's a function. This is called an arrow function. More of it coming later on. I don't need to do this. It will be a bug. Then I need to do e.prevent default. So I'm preventing whatever happens when you submit a form. So I save the file, refresh it, I fill it, submit the file, nothing happens. Submit it, nothing happens. Now I have stopped the default behavior of a form. Whenever you have a submit button in a form, it submits the form itself. So to avoid that submission, you need to prevent the default if that's your intention. But sometimes when we will reach that time of doing the backend development, we are not going to stop this default. We are going to embrace it. We are going to use it. But for now, we are stopping it because we are going to use the form with JavaScript. But using forms with the backend, not a must to prevent the default. So this is just to work on with these forms. Yes. Yes. Okay. So list input dot. I'm going to get its value. So I'm just going to read its value or set its value to that. I'm resetting the value of the list input itself. So I save the file, refresh it. I do that. If I submit it, the value has been deleted. It's because I've set the value to an empty string. So a string is a data type. As you can imagine, we were talking of input type text, input type numbers, input type date, input type checkbox, and input type radio. So if you may relate them to JavaScript, a text, let me do some that. A text here can refer to a string, that's a data type. Then we have a number, ile input type number. It has its default value or its default data type, that's number. Kulikuwa na ile input type date. By default, we have, oh, this is not this is not a data type. We have ile yenye ilikuwa ni checkbox na radio inputs. So zile zenye una check whether checked or not. So these are called booleans. So those are the common ones that you may encounter, though there are several others like city, none, undefined, and the rest. But we only have this as the basic data types for JavaScript. Not many, just a few. The rest you have to define them on your own. And then we have things like objects, which when you do on your own, you shall define your own data types as you go on. Then we want to set to add this list. When I type here my entry, when I add inafaa ikuje hapa. So how to do that? There we were writing some function here of list item. So I'm gonna use that function. How to use it? I'm going to include that script here. So script and say the source to be index.js. That's my script. I have added a script here. I want this script to return a list item. HTML, just HTML of that list item. So I'm going to copy this list item from here, this one, just the first one there, and delete this one. Okay, I can just comment out this for later check. There we go. Then I need to return that list item here. So I'm just going to return a list item like that. But in this case, I'm passing in the item itself. So for that case, I'm going to pass in the item itself. This is called string concatenation. So how do you concatenate two strings together? So in JavaScript, it's kind of easy. So const string 1, that is my name, for example, here Dalmas. And my const string 2, here is Ogembo. Take this as my first and last name. So fname, that's first name, and last name, lname. I want to add these two strings together or have a single string. So if I do console.log fname plus last name, you realize that, I think this one is open, yes. I have concatenated the two strings together, but you see, is it joined together, Dalmas or Gemba as a single string. If I want to add some space there to katikati, I do that, I add another space. That's called string concatenation. Yes, yes. Eh? Just a moment. Yeah, I needed to explain this one, otherwise, yeah. So, or you could do backticks. This I call the backticks. Hizo vitu zenye zinakaa ni colon ama zinaitwaje, quote, but the other one. So if I do $, curly braces, I can be able to do Dalmas fname here and add a space there. I do a $, and I do last name there. So that's part of string concatenation. More of this coming soon as we go on with the course. Then I don't want that. I need to return this list item. So scrolling down, I need to get the value. So const my list equals to that. I have my value. I'm going to do like my list in my holder. Now I'm going to select another thing here. We have this list here which is holding everything. So copy that list. So to do this in the right way, always use an ID. It will have the same as the name of the class. There's no harm, but make sure it's the only ID in the HTML. So I have my ID here for this UL that's going to hold all my lists. Then I'm going to copy that list and I'm going to select it from the body. So const list holder equals to document dot get element by ID. I take my list there and I'm going to append this item there. So list holder dot append. I could have said append, but there are better methods of doing it. Instead of appending just like that, I could like to add inserted. I could like to use another method called insert adjacent HTML. Where do I want to insert it? Before end, before the list is over, just the last item. Then I'm going to insert my list item there. And for this list item, I'm going to pass in my list like that. So if I save, refresh the page, come here and add uh, YouTube, yes, and I submit the form, you realize that YouTube has appeared here like out of the sky. Yeah, that's JavaScript making things work out. So JavaScript for interactivity, yes, here we are. This yeah. Oh, these ones, yeah. Yes. Mm. Yes, I think there's a hand somewhere. All right. Yeah, there are very many functions, but for the start we don't want those many. Tunataka ti kuselect kitu kutoka kwa body, and that's how we do it. Document dot get element by ID. You select by the ID. Document dot query selector. You select by what you want to select by. If it's a class, you do dot. Kama hapa hivi ungefanya document dot query selector dot call for. You could do the same with your HTML. Yes, John. Is it John or somebody? Somebody raised their hand. John, yes. Yes. Uh, right. So you have to start by selecting what you are going to use in your JavaScript. So kama huku, you have selected the list holder, this dot list or the list ID. Hii. Where is it? Here. So mi nimekuja hapa nikaselect hii UL. It's the same thing I did when I was selecting the list hapa. Let me try to find it here. I did the same with CSS. You can't style if you have not selected it. So select it, dot list, this is a class, then add some styling to it. The same here. I have come, this is my list. I have given it the ID of list. Scroll down. I'm going using the document and selecting by ID the list. Yes. Cosmos has raised. So my button, how did I select my button? So this is where I didn't select the button itself. I selected the form instead. Umeona? So after selecting this, yeah, I selected the list form. This is the first form here. I selected this one, this form here. I didn't select the entire button. After selecting the form, added some listeners. Ni kama kusikiza tu, which is the best one. Ukisikia for example ile tulikuwa tumezoea, ukisikia kengele hivi unaanza kuimba lunch imefika. It's the same. I'm listening to the form. The moment imekuwa submitted, I'm going to handle something. I'm handling the form or how it should be processed. I'm processing the form now manually. Um, Cosmas, you had raised your hand. Yes, yes, weird. Yes, yeah, yes. Let me go there. Umeona kama hii display, click me to display date. Ukipitia hii JavaScript by next week, like usisome kila kitu kindly, uta fail. And don't read seriously to be secure. I just according to Cosmas, vile Cosmas amesema, you just go through, understand like hii, unaona hii page ya kwanza, isome tu ielewe vizuri. Then after this, go to your JS introduction, go through it, isome ielewe. When Cosmas will be starting this, yeah, you see nani alianzia hapa. Try it yourself, turn on the light, turn on the light. Hata hiyo ifanyi. So you will just make sure, oh, it's working, it's working. Yeah, you need to make sure like you go through this, understand how this works, then itakuwa easier. Just go through the home and the introduction. Kwenda chini ukisikia imekulemea, at least Cosmas akifanya the first introduction, then you will continue down from there. But just go road, hata ukiona usome tu kama notes, si mbaya, just go through kusoma soma, It's not dangerous. Just like making yourself uko ready kusoma hii kitu. Yeah. So so that means I'm not going to complete this project today. It will be completed after JavaScript has been introduced to day 4, I think. Day 4 or day 5. Let me just show you what shall happen. So we added our list here, YouTube. I'm going to add another list. Let's say my daily course. Okay, my daily, is it that? Jina ni ngumu. Source. So itakuja hapo. Then I say the next one niseme which one? Okay. Let's call this one learning how to code. To code JS. What you are going to do. I added that one. Then now you see when I add a list item, hii ni yangu inabaki ikiwa na hiyo the same value. I want to delete it the moment I add it. So let me go here. If I come here and do another value, that's hiyo ndio tulianzia, but let me just do it again. I set that one. Now I'm resetting the value to just an empty string. That's where I went ahead to explain what are strings. Save the file, refresh the page. Strings are those centiliter texts. So call this one YouTube content. Maybe do another one like having a class. Ama let me do learning the yes. I want to repeat this. I don't have many options. Paste, 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 paste. You realize our holder is having a few problems. I think I left this one out when I was tackling this. At least now you know why we have this scroll bar here, to make sure that we scroll within the required element, not outside. For example, this one has overflown. We could use overflow hidden, but we couldn't see the rest of the lists. Now we also want to see the exact list that we have. So I'm just going to adjust my CSS a bit. Going to the list item, let me pick the class that has that. It's called lists holder. So I'm going to the lists holder and updating that one. So find the lists holder, list heading, lists. What is it? Control find lists folder. Here we go. We have set a fixed height, but not the overflow part. So I'm going to set the overflow X to none or hidden. I don't want anything overflowing to the X or the X or the horizontal way. I only want the overflow to be on the Y axis only. So I'm going to set this one to auto. I save the file. If I now start adding these items, these list items, there we have our scroll bar. Now on this scroll bar, I set it to auto. There are more another option that you set the scroll bar to which one? I don't know. We have auto, hidden, and scroll. Yes. So if I set this one to overflow white scroll, I refresh the page. By default, tunaona tu hii space ya scroll. Sometimes you don't want to show this scroll when there's no content. To do that, the right way is to make it auto. It only overflows when there's enough content to make it overflow. Do that, do that, do that, do that. Now this one is overflowing. Now that's the work of JavaScript. I've been able, leo ni kuweka tu hiyo list in overflow vizuri, and I think I added a class here that shouldn't be there, just need to remove it like that. Refresh the page. Now hiyo ni list haiko selected because we don't want to select something right now. When it will be selected, it will have that background that ilikuwa hapo before, this kind of background or this kind of background. Ama hiyo when it's selected and when it's appearing here kwa hii jina YouTube list. So that's JavaScript, purely JavaScript. For now, I believe that's the farthest an introduction or what JavaScript does. You have seen if you use it right in the right way, to give you the right results that you want. You saw when I was starting, somehow my mind was offline a bit, but it later came online. So just remember, JavaScript is easy if you do enough practice, and if you hide from practice, even HTML will be tough. So practice, practice makes perfect. That's it for today. So I'll just do a quick recap of what we have done today to make things easier. So today was just to make this input to work out. We have only been able to make the list input to be active. We have not been able to activate this other input here. So that was what we intended to have today. And we have also been able to change the gradient or change the background, have a singular color that we are using. And also we have introduced the JavaScript, the using files from external files for our JavaScript, or using inline JavaScript. So this is inline JavaScript, and this is for the external one. External, how to link, you need to use source. For example, how we were linking our style sheets, we were using href, but for our JavaScript, we are using source instead. And also, you might find this script in the head hapa juu ndani, ikiwa hapa ndani. Don't worry about that one, because still it's one way of doing your scripts, though not the recommended way, except that there are some scripts that you need to insert in your head, and the others, or most of them, on the footer. So just have your scripts that way, and usually we do all scripts after the main HTML content has been finished. Yeah. Any question? Just throw them. But what you'll need to do is like go to yesterday's video, try to redo this. I could have shared the file, but after talking to the other instructors, they said sharing files won't make a better dev. So let them go through the video and learn how we solved something, how we solved the overflow, how we solved the styling itself. So just go through the video and redo what we did by yesterday. That was just this good looking page here without functionality, just with HTML and CSS. Yeah, with that utakuwa na reduced the questions, otherwise you'll be asking questions which have been covered. Right, another, an addition. I think now, yes. So I think this what is going to happen. When learning JavaScript, JavaScript is somehow really tough to do with Sublime Text, unless you are fully equipped with it. Kama mi nimekodi kidogo, I can use the Sublime Text, and I don't think that Cosmos will be taking you through JavaScript using Sublime Text. So we will share a link for another IDE or another text editor that will be used specifically for JavaScript. Sawa. So by Monday, remember to have that installed. That is VS Code, this one. It's called Visual Studio Code. Just make sure you have it installed by Monday before the classes start. And also make sure umefanya, so you have this weekend, maybe create some time, do the sign up form, and also try to do this other to do application, ama the to do website. Then Monday, the introduction, I think maybe Monday or Tuesday, JavaScript itakuwa introduced vizuri. Just have VS Code installed. It will make your life easier when learning JavaScript. Yes, including W3 schools. W3 schools kusoma tu juu unaweza fanya practice ikufrustrate. You need some introduction before you start doing your own practice. Just go through, understand, oh, hii kitu kumbe ni hivi. The good thing is that they have that, hiyo ni try it yourself. You could just click on that button, go try it out in that same website without copying any code or moving any code to your local system. Right, I think that's all for today. If there are no further questions, yes, no. The reason is, so the reason as to why I have chosen VS Code for JavaScript is because it will help you catch errors earlier. You won't like find yourself struggling with JavaScript much as I did when I was yeah, on Sublime. So Sublime for my case, I know most of the functions and I understand them. I can be able to do create everything with Sublime Text. But I also don't use Sublime Text because I want some sort of code compilation. But for learning purposes, yeah. But for learning purposes, for my case, I use the Sublime Text fully to learn a lot of things. So Sublime was my go-to option when I started coding, without any text compilation, without anything. Then later on, I used something called Atom. It's another IDE it's like VS, but somehow people say it's more powerful. Atom code editor. So Atom also is a powerful code editor. Let me see. Where is it here? It's called nope. I want the Atom, the link to Atom itself. Atom. I can't find a link direct to Atom, so let me try to find it here. GitHub. Where's the link to Atom now? I'm seeing link to downloading it, not a link. Let's go to the here we learn about Atom a bit. Atom is like VS Code. Let me just not say learn a bit about Atom. It's another editor like VS Code, so powerful. So I did use that one, but by then I had a 4 GB machine, so somehow nilikuwa nimeinstall a lot of package. So to be in a safer place when using even VS Code with Chrome or with any browser, you need at least 8 GB. But no, you need at least actually 4 GB. VS Code is not that heavy as compared to the rest of the IDEs that people use. For example, I do use PyCharm here. It's kind of heavy. I do have an 8 GB, so it's not that heavy to my machine by now. But then back, I couldn't run PyCharm, VS Code, and Chrome at the same time. I had to like decide either run VS Code with Chrome or just PyCharm with VS Code. But for the start, you are just learning, so just VS Code with Chrome or VS Code with the Edge or your browser of your choice, then there's no harm with on your 4 GB laptop or computer or desktop or whichever machine you're having. But at least 4 GB would. So if there are no further questions, I think uh, let me find the website. No, kwani kitu iko deprecated? Has it been dropped while people are using it? No, I can't find the Atom Code Editor website, and today is that day that things are falling apart. Yes, just download VS Code. It will be good. Right, I think we are done here. Jeremy, do you have any question? I was yes.